to talk about is my Choose project. My name is Carlton, for those who don't know me. So yeah, let's get going. So I did my Choose project, my internship at the Public Theater in the city. It's located on 425 Lafayette Street, downtown. And they do a variety of different shows, but basically mostly revolving around Shakespeare productions and things of that nature. They actually produce their own Shakespeare shows and they put them on there, and a lot of the shows that are put on there actually end up being bigger shows on Broadway here and a lot of other places where I've actually even worked on a couple shows that they've produced. The Public Theater was founded in 1967 in the former Astor Library. So that's right on Astor Street in downtown Manhattan. So yeah, there's a lot of pictures that I have of the performances they do there. They were the world premiere of the musical Hair, if you guys are familiar with that. It all came from this space. And they recently renovated the space and do a lot of different shows. I think they have 5 different theaters within the headquarters, which is on 425 Lafayette Street. And they're known for, as you guys may be familiar with, the New York Shakespeare Festival. And that's where I did most of my work. For years and years and years, they've been doing this since 1967 in the Central Park location. So yeah, it was a really cool place. They do these shows, and I'll go over the actual location of it in a minute. But basically they do shows in their headquarters as well as in the Shakespeare in the Park location at the Delacorte Theater. The Public Theater was founded by Joseph Papp. He was an American producer and director, and basically put together all of this, and really was the force behind having these shows in a central location, being able to write more shows and do things like that. So that's actually a picture of the show that I worked on this year. So my experience there was, I was a lighting intern, so I worked with the lighting and the sound guys sometimes, but I got to sign the sheet, and I was an actual employee. That was the first day on the job. I went there, and I was at the headquarters of the Public Theater, which is at 425 Lafayette Street. And it was one of the theaters in there, and I had met with my boss, and he had put me in this interesting theater where they were just hanging a lot of things everywhere, with ladders, paper, newspapers, and I never got to see that show, but that was interesting. That was the first show that was the first experience I had with the public, is working with these guys. That's Pete up there. So yeah, they had they put me in there, and I was working with the electrics crew and doing the lighting and stuff. So they showed me around a little bit. That's some of their gels that they have in-house, and that's one of their storage facilities, but they do have quite a few. The next day I started at the Delacorte Theater, which is in Central Park. It's an outdoor, as you can see, theater with a stage and 6 different towers for lighting. So it was very interesting. It's one of the strangest, well, not strange, but probably the most different place I've ever worked for that kind of work. So yeah, it's in Central Park. And at this point, this was the second day. It was raining, it was kind of gross, but none of the lights had been actually brought to the park. So we've got all these electricians, that's the term that you use for someone who works with lighting and for these kind of productions. We had a whole crew of electricians that were waiting to work, and all of the lights were still in the rental agency being prepped. So, we were doing little jobs here and there. That's Martin. I worked with him building a couple of platforms for lights. He showed me a couple of cool tools. The router was my favorite. And then the following day, I went to Port Authority, where I took the bus I forget which ramp it was, but to Secaucus, New Jersey. That's the crew I went with, and we got in a lot of traffic going to New Jersey. And that's PRG. So PRG, I don't know if I said it yet, but it's the Production Resources Group. If you look at any, well, I'm not going to say any, but most shows around here are, they have the rented equipment from PRG. So that's in Secaucus, New Jersey. We took a bus to the location. And if you think about it, inside of it's almost like the Home Depot for lighting equipment. It's like everything you could ever imagine or want is there. And they're moving around with forklifts and a lot of different stuff. So thousands of gels and gel frames and C-clamps. It was kind of ridiculous. But so yeah, I took a lot of pictures with my cell phone camera. That was some truss. Those are the big speakers you see hanging from huge arenas and stuff. So what was different about the Delacorte Theater is that after I left the Production Resources Group, I started to actually get to know a little bit about the Delacorte Theater. Like I said, it's an outdoor theater. It's really old. Well, not really old, but it's pretty old. And this is the actual dimmer rack that was hardwired into the theater. So for those that don't know, a dimmer rack is kind of like a circuit breaker. If you go in your house, you've got a circuit breaker, and you can power different parts of your house or different different lights, different areas. So in this case, this is the circuit breaker for every single light circuit that they have, or that they had back in 1967. If you've ever seen a telephone operator, from the old days, they pull it and put it in. So basically, these up here would come down and you'd push it into the actual circuit. It's a very old method, and I thought it was really cool. And so the interesting part about working in a place like this, and you know, what's different about it is that most places you go don't have something like that, where you have to use both state-of-the-art, brand new equipment and stuff from 1967. So it was interesting for me to see kind of the way that they go about handling that situation. Is going from really old equipment, bringing in equipment that'll convert this and convert that and enable you to do that. So yeah, it's a big thing. And of course in the back of it, it has a bunch of really heavy wires that come out, and you have to plug it in, and a lot of complicated stuff. So yeah, a lot of it is also transforming the actual venue itself, because the Delacorte Theater, when you start off, like the first day I was there, was pretty much a clean slate. They don't have many places to rig lights other than the towers. They don't have anything on the stage. It's just complete bare stage. So a lot of what we do is, in the beginning stages, is preparing the stage for lights that are going to be on. That is my boss up in the corner there. His name was Zach. He was an interesting guy. That is Lauren, all of them down there. So we're actually in the process of building a truss system right there, which would, you'd be able to hang a light from basically anywhere on that. And it's a big structure that we can do. So this is pretty much when I started off. It was kind of in the phases of getting things up and everything, but those are source boards that we use, and we had to build these bars to actually get these kind of access points. So a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of climbing, a lot of hands-on work. This is an interesting method that I learned, is that these are extremely heavy cables. They're about usually 100 feet to 200 feet, and that's the actual kind of cable that we run to power the lights up in the towers. So you don't want to just spool it out, spool it out, spool it out. So they actually put it on the crates, and they have a rotation little system going that I thought was interesting. So yeah, those are a lot of people I worked with. And that's the bridge that you go up on the ambulance. And apparently, what I heard was that it is from the New Jersey Turnpike at some point, and they actually had it installed into the theater as a truss system. So I thought that was kind of cool. So it's just a very different place. You get lighting diagrams, and I actually learned what this guy was. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a tension meter, and you're actually able to figure out the tension, whether it's too loose or too tight, on a supporting beam in order to get these truss systems to be safe. So, a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, the most interesting thing, or one of the most interesting things, is that it's in a park. You know, big central park, a lot of grass, a lot of sunlight and trees. So it's a really beautiful place. I used to commute every day walking through Central Park and seeing nice people, nice dogs, and a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, we even had the ducks that came at lunch. They'd come right next to our table and eat with us. But of course we have the element of the weather, and the weather would be pretty gross. So that would be my commute on a bad day. Walking through the park, or running through the park actually. Yeah, a lot of water coming on me and down every which direction. So yeah, you'd think, oh, Central Park, but yeah, sometimes it wasn't as fun. But it's part of the experience. Lots and lots of rain. We had a couple weeks where you guys probably remember. And this is kind of like the skeleton of the the Delacorte Theater. That's what you don't see. That is under the seating, where all of our wires are, and cables are going up and down and all around. They're really heavy, and then the combination between it being heavy and then wet and then combined with dirt, and it wasn't, you know. So that happened every once in a while, but experience. So yeah, at the end of it, it was worth every bit of it. You know, that's the vantage point of the bridge up there. Those are the coolest bosses I've ever worked with. And you know, it's a cool show, so I really enjoyed it. So after I experienced that, I experienced you know, working in the field in in that kind of performing arts field. I did some research on my own, and what I researched was the impact of technology on theater. One of the things I researched. And so I've got a couple things for you guys to kind of keep you awake.
Coachella has been attracting bigger and better music performances, but 2012 saw not only the top hip-hop stars of today, but legendary Shakur.
But that is
life-size figure Shakur,
that is not him
died
personally.
25 in 19.
So what they did was they were able to
Snoop Dogg
create Tupac on stage with a hologram and actually make it so that the audience looks like Tupac is actually there. So what I found interesting about that was that, well, he's not alive anymore, and well, he's not alive anymore. So how do you get his shape, his face, his everything without even having somewhere where you can recreate? So nowadays what they're doing is they're finding different ways to keep your audience, engaged. The other thing I kind of thought was interesting was the Super Bowl. How you can go from a football arena to a stage like this in minutes. So with the impact of technology on the theater and live performances and different things, it makes this kind of thing possible within minutes. And so much preparation is going into something like this, but in a split minute, you know, your viewer is watching something as crazy as this. Well, I thought this was crazy. I probably watched this 10 times, and I'm not looking at Beyonce, actually.
Of course not.
I'm looking at everything around.
Yeah, I believe that.
Which is true, though. I mean, pyrotechnics and all this great stuff. Yeah, so I really enjoyed watching this kind of thing. So yeah, but basically the way I see it is that there's a lot of impacts on theater in the way of technology. You can have something like that, or you can have something, you know, kind of scaled down, a couple lights here and there. But this kind of thing is now possible. So what I'd like to kind of maybe keep going, I guess. Shows are becoming more advanced. They are getting more advanced. They are becoming easier for things like that to occur. But they also have to have a lot of people who are skilled in being able to work with that kind of equipment in a timely fashion and get it pulled off. So as far as like a job security kind of thing, you know, people would say, oh, technology is coming in and is, you know, cutting jobs for that kind of thing. That industry, it's affected by it, but it's got its ups and its downs. For instance, getting all of those lights hung in that arena and that exact placing and everything takes manpower, and people to come in and think about it and design it, and for people to actually create newer technology so that there's the next Super Bowl. What's the next Super Bowl going to be like? It's got to be better than that now. So there's people thinking and thinking and thinking. The other thing I thought was interesting was that now they're involving or being able to integrate the crowd into the actual show. So, or well, the lighting of it. So we've got here a new app that I researched that actually can pinpoint your location in an arena or a venue of some sort, and you're able to kind of tap into their system, and they give you a place where your colors will come up. So let's see what he's saying.
Up in the air, everyone will be able to enjoy the synchronized patterns playing out on the canvas that is the crowd. New scenes and new venue maps are currently being developed, and feedback of any type is encouraged. Hitting the men.
So yeah, basically what that was you're able to take your cell phone if you're at the Super Bowl, and if they have wired it or made it so that you're able to do this, you're able to hold your cell phone up, and the colors with the person next to you and everything comes together so that you are in fact part of the show and part of the lighting process. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing I researched was the intrinsic impact of live entertainment. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, I researched it, and it is basically the natural response to live entertainment. So how you or your friends or your family react to being at a concert. How does your brain react to it? What makes you enjoy these concerts? Or, you know, theater shows, different stuff like that. Oops. So, one of the first things I researched was my connection to my internship. It was Don Holder. For those that don't know, Don Holder is a lighting designer. He designed Spider-Man, I think he designed The Lion King, and he lives right here in Croton. And I searched, some videos of him and kind of the work that he did, and I found interesting stuff.
99% of the audience is unaware of the lighting, but 100% is affected by it.
So basically speaking to the fact that with the technology you're creating a scene without even knowing what you're watching. Really.
Lighting operates on so many different levels, but it controls perception. A lighting designer reveals the world of the play. We control what you see and how you see it. I mean, that's the essence of what we do. Story is being told in the frame of a comic book world, and so the lighting had to enhance and underscore that. We looked at a lot of the original Spider-Man comic strips. There's a very specific aesthetic, use of color, the way backgrounds and foregrounds are rendered that was really inspiring in terms of the choices I made, the design choices I made, the way I even lit a sky, for example. What I'm most proud about all the statistics and everything is you never really are taken out of the experience and think, my God, it's so much equipment, so much technology. You don't notice it. The story is told seamlessly, transparently. One of wonder, one of magic that you are not aware of how much effort went into making the event happen.
So what I found interesting about what he was saying, I don't know if you could really understand him as well as I could, but what he was saying is basically the work that they put in as a lighting designer, as a production manager, or whatever you're actually working as, is specifically engineered to trigger different thoughts in your minds or different feelings and evoke different emotions as you view the show. So I thought that was really interesting. And basically what I researched here was the different aspects of enjoying a show or kind of being involved with the show. So the breakdown of that starts with the captivation of the show, meaning, are you getting lost? You know, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I was lost in that show. You know, I thought it was really interesting. It brought me to another place." That's all to do with the captivation of it. Is what is it doing to engage you? Is it evoking emotions to you? Is it giving you a spiritual value, which are things that I'm going to speak about? What is that doing to you? So it's not like you're just sitting there at a concert and, oh, it's just cool lights or that. It's actually the lights, the colors, this, that, and the other are actually made so that you feel a certain way. Colors hit a certain character so that you connect to him a certain way, him or her. So yeah, that's one thing, is captivation. The next thing is intellectual stimulation. So what that is basically how it's making you think. Are you challenged or provoked? You know, what is the message that they're sending? What do you think about that message? So if it's a comedian, if it's a singer, what is the singer saying that is making you feel a certain way? Basically things like that. Is it changing any of your beliefs? Is it is it trying to convey a message to you? Is basically what excuse me, is what that is. And the other thing, another one is spiritual value. It's basically, is it uplifting to you in any way? Is it inspiring to you? If you're going to the show, a lot of the times certain religious music or different performances like that can uplift someone. It can give them a different feeling. It can make them feel a different way spiritually. So it's actually, it's different ways. Basically, it's different ways that someone connects to the performance. And in this case, spiritually, it can bring you uplifting a little bit. And sometimes even feeling empowered or motivated, depending on what kind of show it is. One of my favorite parts, yes, is aesthetic growth. Whoops, I went a little too far. That's okay. Where are we gonna go? Wow, we went really far. Let's try that again. Let's see, all the way down. Keep going. You were here. Okay. Oops. You guys can tell me if I passed it. Let's start from the beginning, bro. Start from the beginning. Darn it. Alright, here's what we'll do.
There you go.
Is that here?
Yeah, right there.
This one, there we go. Okay. So, yeah, that's another thing with this program. It's different. I wanted to do something a little different. I didn't want to do a PowerPoint. I didn't want to do Prezi. I wanted to do something a little different with more visuals. So it's a little challenging in some ways, but it's going. So yeah, it's basically aesthetic growth is if you're being, if you're interested in a different way. It's a new type of style of art. Regardless of if you like it or not, it's basically just, if you're at a concert and you're being exposed to something different that you're not really used to. And you might love it, you might hate it, but it's that, and is it changing any of your feelings? If you go to that, and it's a different kind of art style. And a lot of the times that comes up when you're seeing someone new for the first time, and you're like, wow, I really like this person, or I really, I like this music a lot. So that is where that comes from. And social bonding, I think, is probably one of the the coolest ones. If you go to a concert with your friends, you know, you're going there not only to have fun with them, but to bring home memories with you, to remember what you did with them, and you know, different experiences that had happened along the way. So that, yeah, that just goes against, you know, it goes with being exposed to different cultures sometimes socially, gaining new insight, or basically, you know, if it's social issues or whatnot, but basically just the social aspect of that. And the overall satisfaction of going to a show and saying either I liked it or I didn't like it. So that all is basically a part of it. In the end, you look at a production or a show or a concert, wow. Exactly. And you know, you see the lights, you see the people, you see everything, how a show comes together, you see what people like about the show, what are different emotions that they're feeling during the show. And that's all part of it. So it's, you know, for me, I watch a show not only because of the performance, but basically seeing how people react to the performance. And that's one of the reasons I would like to go into this industry. This is actually an industry I studied, but I'm actually really interested in it. I like seeing people happy. I like seeing people having a really good time, as you can see in these videos. And the transformation, you know, of a place like that, and going with lights, different things. So it's always something new, something interesting, and something fun. And that's pretty much it. It's just having a good time. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, guys.
All right, questions?
Comment?
Well, yeah.
Just to let everybody know, Carlton, every morning would be on my train going down to the city at 7:40 in the morning, and would come back with me again at 6:50 at night. So he certainly was putting the time in. And on Monday mornings, he would come in and tell me things that he started working on or researching over the weekend, and then each day, following up, we'd always talk about what he did during the daytime. And it was certainly a lot, and obviously by the presentation that he put together, he put a lot of work into it, and it was very good, Carlton.
Thank you.
I found that last piece that you did about the pieces, the social, emotional, you know, all that aesthetic, whatever. I found that very interesting. I just never stopped to give it a thought. Of course, I know all that, but I never stopped to really think about it, so thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Exactly.
But my question is, did you get that before you started doing your research? I mean, you've been in the lighting and staging and stuff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Did you understand all that before going into this, or?
I knew going into this program and this internship and this research that there was something about performances that draws people to it and makes them enjoy that. That's what I even spoke to it in a video that I sent to my colleges. It's basically like I love seeing the interaction between either the performers and the crowd, or you know, the way that they react to a certain thing. And you know, if they're really having a good time, I love seeing that. So I knew, you know, I knew there was something to it. I just didn't know what it was. So I researched that, and that was one of my favorite research topics. Is basically why people enjoy being at a show. You know, what makes them enjoy it. And the study, you know, the research that was there is actually by a college, a couple of colleges in a big research study that I got some of that information from. And you know, they were actually saying that that kind of information is now being used in the concert business and theater business to say, okay, you know, how's the crowd going to react to this show, or you know, are they going to like it, are they going to come back, are they going to want you know, an encore? So a lot of that stuff is now being considered.
I think advertisers probably had a sense of that.
Yeah, huge, yeah. No?
Just to correct myself before I ask my follow-up question, what Don Holder said, he said 99% of people don't recognize the lighting, but 100 people are affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, so my question is then, how do you feel about lighting and that area being undervalued?
I don't feel that it's undervalued in the way that they're coming to see the show as a whole. So they see the show and they experience the show, but they don't know what it is specifically that they're experiencing. They don't really know that this light is doing this and this light is doing this and these colors are making you feel this way, but they enjoy the experience. They leave the show saying, that was a cool show. Now they might not be able to identify specifically what about it is a cool show or what about them is making them feel a different way that they didn't feel before. But I feel that they usually, you do, if you don't just point out, oh, I liked how these lights were moving up and down, you see the show and you say as a whole, I really enjoyed it. So, I think that, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
Chris?
So obviously I got on stage here with you and you're used to working with we have a lot of supplies and materials, but it's not anything compared to what you work with in public theaters. So were you, at first, when you first got there and saw oh my God, they have so many lights, was that intimidating to you or did you embrace it?
Intimidating, no, but really fascinating, yes. I saw things that I had never seen before that were very simple, like a bar that connects to a light and makes it a lot easier to hit a certain angle that we had never been introduced to in stage crew. It's the kind of thing you really have to see that in the industry and you have to experience it. And I was actually talking to my boss. I made a list of 50 different things that I'm going to recommend because they're just all, even with the router. I mean, the router, we don't have a router, we don't have a stall draw, we don't have an extension A-frame ladder. There's a lot of different things that I was looking at. I'm like, how do we exist without these things? So, yeah, it wasn't intimidating, but it was just interesting, and it made me think that we need to spend more money.
So is lighting what you want to do?
No.
So I was curious about that. So the lighting director, you're putting these lights up in daylight, but then at what point do you, he has an idea of where everything goes and then everybody comes on stage and you start, how do you direct them when it's at the beginning of the process when you know that it's the end of the process where you actually have to see
Right, exactly. Well, that was one of my first questions actually, is I looked at the are you speaking about the Delacorte Theater? Or
yes,
yeah.
Yes, the outdoor theater.
Yeah, the outdoor theater there it was really interesting to me because when I came in there, the truss wasn't built. There were no lights on any of the spots where you hang lights. So what the designer does, and I asked the designer, I actually met him personally. I'm like, where did you come up with this design? Because nothing, is there. So what they do is basically they have a design, but they have a common idea of what they want the show to look like. They usually go into the situation saying, I want the show to look like this. And they look at their theater, and they say, how can we make it look like this? What bars can we hang this on? What can we do to get this angle? And then they basically build around their idea. So it's they have a common idea, and then that's the lighting designer, and they build it. So your question, I think, one of the things that I picked up on your question is that, number one, the Delacorte Theater's outside. So for us, it's like you can't see the lights when they're on during the day anyway. So that was the weirdest job because they had really weird hours. I came in at kind of like a regular daytime shift hour. But you have another crew that comes in starting at 9 and stays in Central Park until 4 a.m. to actually focus the lights and in the dark, so that you're focusing in the dark, you don't have the sunlight, you don't have things bouncing off from trees and different things. And was there another part to that question? I felt.
Well, I just wondered, how. So the lighting director knew what was needed to put up there. That was your job, and then the other crew comes in, and because you have to follow the people on stage, and you have to make allowances for anything else that's on stage.
Yeah.
So just was curious how that works.
And the interesting.
The pictures you showed us, they were flat. You didn't start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The interesting thing about that was that we have, and this is one of the things I learned. There's the lighting designer. And the lighting designer is an interesting job because you can design here, and then you might go to California and design there, and then go to Arkansas. So the lighting designer bounces all around. But you have the lighting supervisor who I worked under, and that was the person who, and I spoke to him about this. very specifically. He was like, my job is to take whatever the lighting designer wants and actually make it happen on, you know, on the, in our space. So the lighting designer, yes, they will plot out something that sort of looks like it might make sense, but realistically, a lot of the changes have to be made in order to accommodate that per space. So yeah, the guy I worked with and the people I worked with they haven't seen the show, they haven't seen a rehearsal, but they know what the lighting designer wants. So they get a piece of paper, I think I had a picture of it, and that's the way that it's put there, and they have to figure out how it's gonna, you know, look. And a lot of the, you know, the problem is you hang it and it doesn't look right. And I don't know if I said this, but we hung 700 lights. So there was like a 3-week process of going to rehearsals, the lighting designer's there, the lighting supervisor's there, the head electrician's here, and saying, all right, this light needs to be adjusted. This needs to be adjusted. This needs to be adjusted. This needs to be adjusted. So that's what they call notes. Is actors and actresses have their notes, which is, you know, you have to cheat over this way instead. But lighting is like you have to go all the way up there and move this light half an inch. So, yeah.
Were you ever there during the nighttime?
No, I wanted to be. It was.
That would have been
Yeah,
interesting for you.
It would have been. Yeah, the logistics of it kind of rough. My boss actually offered me to stay at his apartment because I would have been getting home at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. So
That happened the same weekend that he graduated, so we were on.
So it's Brandon's fault that he
Yes.
Really? Way to screw up something a little rough.
They every chance you can get, right?
His boss was actually offered for him to stay over in the city because, you know, how was he, you know, first of all, traveling there late at night,
You're not
getting into the park, and then, you know, how was he going to, at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, get home on his own? So they were, you know, concerned about his safety, but he did offer, you know, it was just that weekend that we were going up to North Adams.
Carlton, I would have driven over and brought you home. You know that.
I would love to have a car ride.
All right, yeah, in the van, my wife's van. All right, any other questions?
So, did you have any more interest in lighting after that experience or no?
Well, I shouldn't say I'm not interested in lighting. I'm very interested in lighting, but the industry that I would want to go into is more of the production management of it, and you know, it's kind of like a hard term, but it's a combination between production management, event management, you know, basically the entire execution of a show like that. You know, I'm not really specific towards the lighting, but I like tying everything together from the stage guys, the lighting guys, sound guys, or girls, and connecting all of them to the one production to make it happen.
But
Last question.
it's kind of, but in order to do that, it's like anybody working their way up, they gotta know what happens at the bottom.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be a global
Yeah.
manager, this is very valuable to you, I
of course.
think.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you know one thing, it just puts you in another place. Because you need to know a little bit about everything to do that kind of job, to actually supervise the entire show.
Okay. On that note, we're done. Thank you. All right. Billy, who was your other kid tonight?
No, I'll look it up.
They're going to evaluate me.
Did everybody